In a small village surrounded by green hills and winding paths, a grand celebration was underway. Drums beat loudly, and villagers danced in bright clothes. It was the wedding day of IKECHUKWU, a strong, handsome young man from a wealthy family, and ADAOBI, a kind-hearted girl known by all in the village. But unlike most weddings, this one was not filled with love. IKECHUKWU had been pressured by his family to marry ADAOBI. They thought her gentle nature and hard work would make her a good wife. But in IKECHUKWU's eyes, she was just a poor girl with old, patched-up clothes and dusty feet. When he looked at her, all he saw was her humble past, not her pure heart. As the villagers cheered and sang, ADAOBI's heart was both happy and afraid. She loved IKECHUKWU, even though he never spoke kindly to her. She hoped, deep in her heart, that with time, he would see her true self and love her back. When the wedding feast was over, IKECHUKWU walked ahead, leaving ADAOBI to follow alone. He barely looked back. At home, IKECHUKWU ignored her. He refused to speak except when necessary, treating her as if she were invisible. ADAOBI spent her days cleaning, cooking, and working to please him, but he never smiled at her. One day, as ADAOBI was scrubbing the floors, she overheard IKECHUKWU talking to his friends. "Look at her," he sneered. "She's nothing but a poor village girl. I only married her because my parents insisted." ADAOBI's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she quickly wiped them away. She promised herself she would be strong. She would find a way to earn his respect. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. ADAOBI worked tirelessly in IKECHUKWU's home. She cleaned every corner, cooked delicious meals, and even helped the workers on IKECHUKWU's family farm. But no matter what she did, IKECHUKWU's heart remained cold. He barely spoke to her, and when he did, his words were sharp and hurtful. One rainy afternoon, ADAOBI was fetching water from the river. The path was slippery and she stumbled, spilling the water everywhere. When she returned home empty-handed and soaked, IKECHUKWU was furious. "You can't even do a simple task without failing!" he yelled. "Why did I marry someone so useless?" ADAOBI stood quietly, her eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. She knew crying would only make him angrier. She bowed her head and whispered, "I'm sorry." As the days went by, the village noticed how hard ADAOBI worked and how IKECHUKWU treated her. Some whispered in sympathy. Others shook their heads in pity. One day, an elderly woman named Nneka, known for her wisdom, called ADAOBI aside. "My child," Nneka said softly, "I see your pain. You are strong, but even the strongest heart needs care. Do not let his words dim your light." ADAOBI nodded, but felt helpless. She longed for love and respect, but saw no path to it. Her days were filled with endless work, and her nights with silent tears. Yet, deep inside, she held on to hope. One sunny day, IKECHUKWU fell ill. He was bedridden, weak, and unable to move. No one knew what had caused it. ADAOBI stayed by his side, nursing him day and night. She fed him, bathed him, and gave him medicine, even though he continued to look at her with cold eyes. "Why are you still here?" IKECHUKWU spat one morning. "I do not need your pity." ADAOBI did not respond. She just placed a wet cloth on his forehead and whispered, "I'm here because I am your wife." Days passed, and slowly IKECHUKWU began to recover. He watched ADAOBI, puzzled by her kindness despite his cruelty. Why didn't she leave? Why did she care? But instead of softening his heart, he grew more bitter. He could not understand her loyalty and saw it as weakness. But something strange was beginning to happen. At night, when ADAOBI prayed, a faint glow appeared around her. It was soft and warm, and though ADAOBI did not notice it, those who passed by their home sometimes caught glimpses of it through the window. Something unseen but powerful was at work. ADAOBI was about to face trials that would test her strength even more, but would also reveal a truth that no one expected. The strange glow around ADAOBI became stronger with each passing night. It was a soft, golden light that appeared as she knelt to pray or whispered words of hope into the quiet night. She still did not notice it, but villagers who walked past Ikechukwu's house often stopped and stared, their eyes wide with awe and wonder. One evening, while ADAOBI was cooking dinner, Ikechukwu watched her from the corner of the room. He had never truly seen her like this before, her hands moving gracefully as she prepared the meal, her eyes focused and determined. For a moment, he almost felt something stir in his heart. But then, he shook his head angrily. "No," he muttered to himself, "she's just a poor village girl. Nothing more." Yet, even as he tried to convince himself, he could not ignore the strange dreams that had begun haunting him. In these dreams, he saw ADAOBI standing in a vast field of light, her hands outstretched, and everything around her blooming and thriving. He woke up each time drenched in sweat, confused and uneasy. That night, as ADAOBI slept on the floor near the kitchen, for Ikechukwu refused to let her share his bed, she had her own strange experience. She dreamt of a river that sparkled like diamonds. In the middle of the river stood an old woman with silver hair and eyes that shone like stars. The woman spoke with a voice that was soft but powerful. "ADAOBI," she said, "your strength comes not from the harsh words of others, but from the light within you. Keep shining, and soon all that is hidden will be revealed." When ADAOBI woke up, her heart felt lighter, but she did not understand what the dream meant. She continued her work as always, though a small spark of hope had been lit within her. Ikechukwu's disdain for ADAOBI did not wane. He treated her harshly and refused to acknowledge her efforts. When guests came to visit, he barely introduced her, pretending she was nothing more than a servant. The guests would whisper among themselves, some pitying ADAOBI, while others laughed at Ikechukwu's coldness. One day, a wealthy merchant named Obina visited Ikechukwu. Obina was arrogant and rude, but he was also very influential. Over dinner, Obina noticed ADAOBI serving food and sneered, "Ikechukwu, why keep such a lowly girl around? Surely you can do better." Ikechukwu laughed cruelly. "She is no one, just a poor village girl my parents forced me to marry." ADAOBI's hands trembled as she poured Obina's drink, but she did not let a single drop spill. She bowed her head and continued serving as if she hadn't heard. But inside, she felt like her heart was shattering into tiny pieces. She prayed for strength, and as she did, a sudden gust of wind blew through the room, flickering the lamps and causing shadows to dance wildly. The wind caught everyone's attention. For a brief second, Ikechukwu thought he saw a faint golden glow surrounding ADAOBI. He blinked, and it was gone. Confused and angry, he pushed the thought away. That night, after the guests left, Ikechukwu scolded ADAOBI harshly. "Never embarrass me again," he snapped. "You are lucky to be here at all." ADAOBI nodded quietly, but this time she did not cry. She remembered the old woman's words from her dream. She was stronger than this. One morning, as ADAOBI walked to the market, she saw a small child lying by the roadside, burning with fever. The villagers passed by without stopping. They were too afraid of catching the illness. But ADAOBI knelt beside the child, her heart aching with compassion. She carried the child to a shaded spot and began to cool him with water. As she whispered words of comfort, her hands glowed softly, and the child's fever slowly broke. The villagers who saw this gasped in shock and fear. "Witchcraft!" some cried. Others murmured, "No, she is blessed." Word of the event spread quickly, reaching Ikechukwu's ears. When he heard it, he was furious. "Do you wish to shame me further?" he demanded when ADAOBI returned. "Are you trying to make people talk about us?" "I was only helping a sick child," ADAOBI replied softly. "Stay away from the villagers," he ordered. "I don't want you drawing attention to yourself." But despite Ikechukwu's harsh words, something inside him was beginning to change. He remembered the dreams, the glow, and the stories he heard from the villagers. Could there be more to ADAOBI than he had ever imagined? Late one night, when the moon was full and the village was quiet, ADAOBI woke to a soft knock on the door. She opened it to find the old woman from her dream standing there, just as she had seen her. silver hair, starry eyes, and an aura of peace. "It is time, ADAOBI," the woman said. "The trials are not over, but the truth will soon be revealed. Your light can change hearts, even the coldest ones."